In Formula One, some partnerships become legendary. Ferrari and Schumacher, Red Bull and Vettel, Mercedes and Hamilton. But others become legendary for all the wrong reasons. When McLaren announced they were reuniting with Honda in 2013, it felt like Formula One history was repeating itself. This was the partnership that had dominated the late 1980s with Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost. Together, they had won 4 consecutive Drivers' Championships and 4 Constructors' Championships, creating one of the greatest eras the sport had ever seen. Fans expected history to repeat itself. Instead, they got one of Formula One's biggest disasters. So, just how bad was McLaren Honda? The answer is far worse than most people remember. To understand why the project failed so spectacularly, you first have to understand why everyone believed it would succeed. Honda wasn't just another engine manufacturer, they were one of Formula One's biggest success stories. They had powered Williams, Lotus and McLaren to multiple world championships, and their partnership with McLaren between 1988 and 1992 became almost mythical. In 1988 alone, Senna and Prost won 15 of the season's 16 races. It remains one of the most dominant seasons in Formula One history. McLaren believed they could recreate that magic. After years of using Mercedes engines, they chose to become Honda's exclusive works team. On paper, it sounded perfect. Instead of being one customer among many, McLaren would receive complete factory backing. The team would have influence over the engine design, exclusive development, and the resources of one of the world's biggest manufacturers. There was just one problem. Formula One had changed completely. Honda returned in 2015, 1 year later than Mercedes, Ferrari, and Renault. While everyone else already had a season of experience with the new turbo-hybrid power units, Honda was effectively starting from scratch. That alone put them at a disadvantage. But things became even worse because Honda chose an incredibly ambitious engine design. They wanted an engine that was smaller, lighter, and more compact than everyone else's. McLaren loved the idea because it allowed them to build an extremely tight rear end with excellent aerodynamics. The concept even earned a nickname. They called it Size Zero. On paper, it looked revolutionary. On track, it was a disaster. Almost immediately, reliability problems began appearing. The turbo overheated, the energy recovery systems failed, electrical issues became routine, components wore out far faster than expected. The car wasn't just unreliable, it was painfully slow. At some circuits, McLaren were losing over 100 horsepower compared to Mercedes. For Formula One, that's an eternity. Drivers found themselves being overtaken on the straights by cars they should never have been racing in the first place. What was supposed to be a championship project quickly became an embarrassing fight, simply to escape Q1. And then came the radio message that would define the entire partnership. The 2015 Japanese Grand Prix, Honda's home race. Fernando Alonso was already frustrated after spending lap after lap defending against much slower cars. Then he was overtaken with ease. His response was immediate. "This is embarrassing." Then came the line every Formula One fan remembers. The message was broadcast around the world. Millions of viewers heard a 2-time world champion publicly compare Honda's Formula One engine to the junior series that feeds drivers into Formula One. For Honda, it was humiliating, especially because it happened in front of their home crowd. Alonso later apologized for the wording, but the damage had already been done. From that moment onwards, the phrase GP2 engine became inseparable from McLaren Honda. It was no longer just a struggling project. It had become a global joke. Unfortunately, the statistics were just as painful. Across 2015, McLaren scored only 27 Constructors' Championship points. They finished 9th out of 10 teams. Only Manor finished below them. For a team that had once fought for championships every single season, it was almost unimaginable. The following year brought hope. Reliability improved. The car was finishing more races. There were even flashes of genuine midfield pace, but every time it looked like McLaren were finally turning a corner, another setback arrived. Grid penalties became almost normal. The hybrid systems still lacked performance. Drivers were forced to manage power rather than attack. Instead of racing the cars ahead, They were often trying to survive until the finish. Behind the scenes, things were becoming even worse. McLaren believed Honda's engine was holding them back. Honda believed McLaren's chassis wasn't nearly as good as the team claimed. Both sides insisted they were doing their job. Both sides privately blamed the other. The relationship slowly began to fall apart. Engineers grew frustrated. Management meetings became increasingly tense. Trust disappeared. And without trust, no Formula One partnership survives for long. Fernando Alonso probably summed up the frustration better than anyone. He had joined McLaren believing he could fight for another world championship. Instead, he spent race after race battling towards the back of the grid. His radio messages became increasingly emotional. "You are making me look stupid. There is no power. We are being overtaken, like GP2. At one point, Alonso even admitted he was embarrassed racing in front of fans because the car simply wasn't competitive. Yet, despite everything, he rarely criticized the mechanics or the engineers. His frustration was aimed squarely at the lack of performance, because every driver knows their career is short. Every season spent in an uncompetitive car is another opportunity that may never come again. By 2017, patience had almost completely disappeared. Honda introduced another entirely new engine concept. The hope was that starting again would unlock huge performance gains. Instead, reliability became even worse. Fernando Alonso suffered retirement after retirement. Stoffel Vandoorne accumulated so many engine penalties that starting from the back of the grid almost became expected. Sometimes McLaren arrived at a race weekend already knowing they would receive penalties before a wheel had even turned. It reached the point where commentators joked about it. Fans expected it, and the team could do little more than laugh through the frustration. Eventually, something had to change. At the end of 2017, McLaren and Honda announced they were ending their partnership. After just 3 seasons together, the dream was over. McLaren switched to Renault power. Honda joined Toro Rosso. Most people believed Honda's Formula One project was finished. If anything, many expected Toro Rosso to struggle even more. But then something remarkable happened. Honda quietly improved. The reliability increased. The power deficit shrank. Lessons that had taken years to learn with McLaren finally began paying off. Just 1 year later, Red Bull decided to take a gamble. They replaced Renault with Honda engines. Many people questioned the decision. After all, why would one of Formula One's top teams choose the manufacturer everyone had been laughing at? The answer came quickly. Victories, then more victories, then championships. Honda powered Max Verstappen to his first world championship in 2021, then another, and another. The same manufacturer once mocked for producing a GP2 engine had built the engine powering one of the most dominant periods Formula One has ever seen. So, who was actually to blame? For years, many fans pointed entirely at Honda, and yes, their engine was undeniably underpowered during those early seasons. Reliability was poor. Development was too slow. The project simply wasn't ready for Formula One. But history has become kinder to Honda. When they left McLaren, they became race winners, then world champions. That naturally raises another question. Was McLaren's chassis really as good as they believed? Several engineers who worked on the project have since suggested McLaren consistently overestimated their own car. While Honda certainly deserved criticism, the team's chassis wasn't the championship-winning machine they often claimed it was. The truth is, both sides made mistakes. Honda underestimated the complexity of modern Formula One. McLaren underestimated how difficult it would be to build a brand new power unit under completely new regulations. And instead of working through those problems together, the partnership collapsed under the weight of expectation. Looking back today, McLaren Honda isn't remembered because it finished 9th in the Constructors' Championship, or because of the endless engine penalties, or even because of the infamous GP2 radio message. It's remembered because it showed that success in Formula One can't simply be recreated by repeating history. The names were the same, the badge was the same, the expectations were the same. But Formula One had moved on. What once became one of the greatest partnerships in motorsport history had become one of its biggest disappointments. At least, for a little while. Because in one of Formula One's greatest twists, Honda eventually got the last laugh. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another Formula One story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.